Hello, Booktube. I'm Peg. What a fool. Okay, today this is a little bit of a sad day because Steve yesterday put his last list up, best books of the year, and it's not that I've covered them all yet. I've got quite a few more to cover, but you know, wouldn't you think he could come up with a few more lists to entertain us? It's so great. Okay, so yesterday was an exciting day. His best nonfiction, which I knew was his favorite list, and I also knew that probably the library, the main library that I go to, not the local one, would have most of them, and I don't have any holds left. I can't put any more books on hold to get them. And anyway, so I was at the library when it opened and ready for Steve's list to come out, which it did right on time, and I had a ball racing around the library, gathering up. Now, I must tell you, there's more than 10 on this list. He manages to kind of shoehorn in fact, the very best #1 has 3 books on it, but I'll talk about that more later. But anyway, somebody wrote me, you know, I can just picture you running around. How in the world did you carry all those books? Well, that was a problem, especially with 2 of his. They're the biggest books I ever saw. But luckily, I thought ahead, and I brought my trusty book bag from the Brattle Bookshop that I had gotten when I went to visit Steve, my husband and I, last summer. It brings back some wonderful memories. And I had my other book bag. You see, it's kind of a library and interesting, that I got especially to go book shopping with Sean, the book maniac, when I went to his wedding in Canada, and he took us all around to the local bookstores there. So while we're remembering all the great booktubers I met this year, I'll say also I met 2 booktubers at Politics and Prose, the bookstore in the main bookstore in Washington, D.C. I met Rachel Morrow and Bill from Earnestly Eston. And as an extra treat, I talked Bill he wanted to. He talked me into knitting. And the best thing, what I've always wanted, is a friend who reads and knits. Now, I've got several subscribers that do both, and I love it. But he's become we've gotten together several times since for knitting and book talk. It was great. Anyway, so let's see. What am I going to say? Oh, his list. I'm so pleased, again, with Steve on his list. I was afraid it might be all like heavy politics or dog books or whatever, but no, it's the most varied list. I dare you to look at it and not find some you like, no matter what you're interested in. There's even one on knitting. No, well, not exactly knitting, but crafts in general, and the title comes from a knitting thing. But I want to say there's 5 books. 3 of them were first on his list, and that I just have to have. There are a million holds on them. There'd be no way I could get them in time to put them on here. So I ordered them, and they'll be here by Christmas. I've told you guys, my husband and I have this way to handle Christmas gifts that we start in October. We buy our own books, order them, and when they come, we hand them over to the other guy to store. So Christmas Eve, or whenever we get to them, you get a whole pile of books that you checked out. I mean, you chose yourself, but you kind of forget what they are. And it's fun. You know, you always like them. And so these 5 that I've ordered will get here before Christmas, and I'm going to save them to talk about after I open my book presents on Christmas Day. That's all I get is books. So I'm going to save those till then. I'm sure you'll want to take a look and see what they are. But and let's start out with one on his list that actually, it's true nonfiction and kind of serious, but I've looked at it and I do know a little bit about the author. It's a 2-volume series by William Vollmann, nonfiction about, the first one is, I'm trying to think, No Immediate Danger. And it has to do with nuclear proliferation and what's still around from different nuclear accidents. And I've actually, both of these are over 1,000 pages. I'm sure Steve is the only person in the world that has read both of these. I definitely needed the bag to carry these. But I'm thinking about, for the new year, one of my plans is going to be try to read one daringly big book a month. I mean, just take it, read it for the whole month. And this might be a strong contender. Now, this is not, I have some other books to talk about by William Vollmann. I love his writing. And I want to say that he visited all these places. It gives kind of inside information, and it's not dry and boring at all. It's long, and you don't want to race through, though Steve probably raced through, but it's really interesting. As I said, I've checked it out 2 times before and read parts of it. I probably need to order my own if I'm going to try to get through it. But and the other one is more about the carbon buildup and our use in carbon tech. In fact, it's called the Carbon Ideologies volumes. And this one is more about coal and use of coal and what it's done. And again, he's visited the places. I looked through it. It has great pictures. And it's just almost kind of a memoir, but with some very good facts. And I'm actually looking forward to it. And there might be a chance I'll finish it. We'll see. Okay, William Vollmann. If you haven't heard about him very much, he's really kind of an interesting writer. He's what I call a maximalist. Everything he writes is huge, but it's interesting. I don't know if I'm just kind of like that kind of thing. I would compare it to Pynchon, Thomas Pynchon, maybe. Some of his that go on, but they're mesmerizing to read. Infinite Jest by David Foster Wallace. I'm probably the only person that like that. And again, they're huge always. So, but his first one that I was aware of was actually, he writes nonfiction and novels. Kind of a strange guy with some unusual habits if you want to read about him. But the first time I was already following book prizes in 2005 when this book of his, Europe Central, won the National Book Award for fiction here in the U.S. And I did have a copy and read it. It's been a while. I really need to read it again. But from this one itself is over 800 pages. I can't imagine that. I mean, many people try to read the winner of the National Book Award. I don't know how many did. I can't remember if I quite finished or not, but I really enjoyed it. It has to do with during wartime and after wartime, the Russian, German meetings and stories from there. And it's not pure, it's got a little bit of shape-shifting with people. It's just interesting how it's done. As I said, I can't remember much, but I'm definitely going to try it. Maybe it'll be my first long book to reread. And another series, he has a series of nonfiction, 7 books. It's going to be, only 6 are out, called, what was it called? Anyway, it has to do with North American, it's called 7 Dreams, North American Landscapes. And each one has to do with a different subject of, in North America, places or times where the Native Americans, the Indians, came to dissension with white Americans. And they range all the way from early to the one I've read, which unfortunately, as I said, I always seem to get rid of the one I've read, was the 5th in the series, called The Dying Grass. And as I said, they're all huge, but this had to do with the Nez Perce Indians as they were being chased across Montana and into Canada by the U.S. Army. They had defeated the Army at a former battle, and the Army was very mad and anxious to get them. And I just loved it. I don't know, it's got landscape, it's got whatever. I can't explain why I like things. Anyway, but of course, the one I've read, I've already got rid of. Maybe I need to quit doing that. But I have 2 more in the series. The very first one was The Ice Shirt. and I just pick them up whenever I see them at a used bookstore. And this one has to do, I believe, with Greenlanders, and when they met with the Native American Indians. And the sixth one, which came out not too long ago, was the Rifles. And it has something to do with the 1800s and northern Canada when they were looking for the Northwest Passage. So there's just going to be one more. He did good choosing this author anyway. And maybe I'll read his book, the big books. Okay, let's get quickly on to the other books here that I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to make it quick. Okay, this was on Steve's best debut list. We That Are Young takes place in India. Some billionaire family. It's a play on a King Lear story again, with three daughters who want their father's money. And this has been very popular. It was on some actual Indian prizes that I followed, prize lists. But the main thing is it won the Desmond Elliott for debut in the UK, which is a really big prize there. And it's very good. Kind of entertaining, actually, to see what all those rich people get into. Okay, next we have a book that was on his best science fiction and fantasy list, the book of M by Peng Shepherd. This is a debut for her. Steve, I'll tell you what it's about first. It's about a little bit of a dystopian type novel where people somehow lose their shadows. It's like a disease. All of a sudden your shadow's gone. And as soon as the shadow's gone, you start day by day getting worse, forgetting things. And so, you know, everybody's afraid of it. And what Steve has to say about it is the story is a lean and elegant meditation on the nature of identity. And I particularly like the part starts out with a man and his wife who are living outside of Arlington, Virginia. I love setting, you know, and I like where places I know and have been are shown as they would be after, you know, after the apocalypse. And they're in this deserted hotel, and he goes into Arlington where it's deserted and a real good atmosphere there. And anyway, suddenly his wife loses her shadow, and so it's what they do to stay together, to keep in touch. Anyway, so good one. Okay. Let's see, what have I got here? Okay, Female Persuasion by Meg Wolitzer. I'm sure most of you have heard of it or know about it and have read it. This is on his best novels of the year. And what did he say? He liked it. He said it's a complex and convincing depiction of a female mentor / protege relationship, warts and all. And it was that. It's actually the young woman, it was more, well, a lot about her mentor and as her life went on, and also just her life in general. I liked it okay, and I read it all. Somehow it just didn't grab me as much. I know a lot of people really like it. I mean, I didn't dislike it, but it wasn't the best book I read. But I've heard a lot of people say that they preferred her previous one called Interestings. Now, stupid me. I mean, I had the library. There it was. I thought, oh, I'll read that one and see if I like it better. So I checked it out, even though I have 70 books checked out for this project. Like I'm going to be able to read it, you know, this afternoon. But anyway, did any of you like this one better than this one? Okay. Anyway, on to that. Let's see what we've got left here. Good grief. I know we got some more books. No. Maybe I've done them all. Anyway, okay. Here's that was on his worst I like to do the worst last in my tapes. Worst nonfiction. It was number 10, so I don't know if it was worst. I mean, I don't know if number 10 is worse than number 1. And who cares? They're bad. Okay, it's James Comey's famous book, A Higher Loyalty, Truth, Lies, and Leadership, about his side of what happened when he was fired by President Trump. And Steve brings up the subject that the point that even though he kind of attributes himself to helping show up the weak points of Trump, James Comey himself was part of the last minute thing where he talked about Hillary's emails, and probably was the reason that she lost the election, and he doesn't seem to remember that. So anyway, interesting. And as I said, you got to take a look at the nonfiction list and what he says about it. And I love the way he gets more than 10 into it. Okay, I'm going to take off tomorrow to catch up on my reading. So I'll be back probably the day after. I've got a lot more of these books on his list to talk about. Thanks. Bye.